Good.
Great.
Okay, I'm all ready. But let's give some people some time to come on in.
Yeah, for sure.
How's everyone doing this Wednesday?
Warming up. Defrosting.
Yeah. Totally.
We had lots of people on the call last week. Hey, Bridget?
Yeah, I think we'll have a pretty good number today too, based on what's happening in Eventbrite at the moment and the buzz we've had online. So yeah, this should be another good crowd. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
Every week I get surprised. I'm ahead of time and then I'm like, oh, and I go to because I put it in my calendar and I go, oh, darn it, I've got to go register and get the link and everything. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, I have kept it the same link, so you would be good to just reuse it. I did that because we were just having a ton of confusion every week, and probably be a new solution to come. But for now, we're just using the same link all throughout this kind of Jan to March period of demystifying the startup world. We'll see. We might be going over to a different Zoom account in April.
We've been at Product Calgary. We've been using Platform Calgary's Remo.
Oh yeah, that's also what we've been entertaining, Martin.
Yeah, and I got to say, we used Zoom in the past. We briefly used Hop-In when we had an event with Product BC and Product Edmonton, because Product BC has an Hop-In account. But Remo really helps with the networking in a really nice way.
Yeah, it really does. Last week I tried a little trial using the Zoom feature where you can choose your own breakout rooms, but you need the updated Zoom, and not everyone had it, and we had quite the schmozzle, but lived and learned. The other thing though I like about shoving everyone into rooms without their say is it just sparks a bit more of that those collisions that might not otherwise happen. So there's pros and cons, I guess.
Absolutely.
But we've definitely entertained borrowing platforms Remo, and be worth just doing for March 17th. We're just going to be networking, so maybe we'll try that out that day.
Mm-hmm.
People are starting to roll in. Welcome, everybody.
Bridget and Amber, you and I should chat about the next one, March 17th, that I am co-hosting again. Because I think I'd like to invite the ERIN, but I want to make sure that we've got a good theme, and because Zach, who heads up TNT, is the co-chair for ERIN.
ERIN, yeah.
So
yeah, let's chat. That's actually the one let's chat after this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I can't right after. I'll have to set up another time. I got
another call. For sure. Yeah, we will definitely chat, because currently we were going to do something similar with Carrie Houston around the topic of sales, as we're doing today with product and product management, but we're moving that one into April now. So that date's free at the moment. So we'll chat. But I'll let you get into the intro, James, so we can get going.
All right. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is James Kiersted. I am a serial entrepreneur. I own a company today called Levin Electronics. Our goal is to make intelligent buildings available to everyone using smart controls. I've been in the rainforest since the beginning, and I kind of champion things up here in Edmonton. I'm gonna just talk a little bit about etiquette, a little bit about rainforest, and then introduce us to, I'll let Bridget introduce our guests today. So a couple of things: raise your hand or ask to speak using the chat, or say comment or question. Don't just jump right in. Otherwise, we're going to have lots of people talking over each other. Please stay muted until it's your turn to speak, and don't interrupt the presentation. Jump in without being called on. This helps us maintain flow and keep us on time, which we only have an hour. So Chat and resources will be captured and posted on the lunch notes in the Slack channel. So the rainforest is not the rainforest. It's actually an analogy, right? And rainforests, unlike farms, where all the factors are understood, controlled, and optimized for particular outcomes, these command and control structures are designed for delivering controlled outcomes, maximizing expected results. However, farms themselves don't lend themselves to innovation and new ideas. Innovation is, at its very core, about taking risks and exploring new concepts that are previously untried or unknown. Farms, on the other hand, are risk adverse and risk minimalization engines. Rainforests are wild, untamed spaces where new ideas can sprout and new relationships. And if they're well adapted to their environment, they will thrive. So the vision of the Rainforest Alberta is to develop a world-class community of dreamers and doers connected by a common goal of making Alberta fertile ground for building, developing, and growing innovative ideas into sustainable ventures. Our mission is to connect the innovation ecosystem by strengthening the movement behind the Alberta tech industry around a framework of shared values, of collaboration, community, and trust through storytelling. Of course, at that core is a social contract. And a social contract is really simply an agreement amongst all of us in the ecosystem of what are the code of ethics or the rules that we follow. Why is this important? It's extremely important because if we have these shared values and shared rules, we build trust in that community. And trust is what we find has been proven to increase innovation, the acceleration of innovation. So we ask it, if you are interested in supporting the rainforest, agree to sign as an individual, not as a member of a company or an organization, and bring these values with you. There are really 6 pillars we talk about in building an innovation ecosystem: culture, leaders, resources, engaged activities, policy and infrastructure, and role models. I would say for the most part, Rainforest tends to focus on culture and leaders. But notice, that's 50% of the equation. So it's incredibly important. If we get that right, the rest of the stuff will fall in line. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to hand things over to Bridget. And thank you all. I'm excited to be here and look forward to learning today. Take care. You're on mute, Bridget.
If I had a nickel. Okay, so I was just saying to myself that I'll be very brief today, and we're going to pass it right over to our panelists who have joined us from the world of product management. And so in the theme of demystifying the startup world, I myself was curious, and I was having a ton of conversations with people who were curious around what is product management, and even from founders of startup companies saying, when do I need them? How do they, at what point do they enter the equation, and how can they really help optimize and scale my business? And so we're going to hand it over to Martin L'Heureux of Product Calgary. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He began his career as a developer with a taste for strategy. Over the following years, he moved into business analysis and product management. His passion is understanding the customer needs, both practical and emotional, and helping teams deliver extraordinary experiences through human-centered practices. Martin has worked on customer experiences for both startup and Fortune 500 companies. He is active in the community as a co-founder of Product Calgary, and he once started a robot uprising. Amber and I here at Rainforest Calgary really want to hear more about that, Martin, but maybe we can save it for another time, whatever you have planned. Martin has some guests joining us today, and I'm going to pass it right over to him so he can introduce them and start the conversation. I will also just note that at about 20 to 1, we hope to jump into some breakout rooms. and in a much more orderly fashion than we did last week, if you were with us last week. And at 5 to 1, we will wrap up with some community announcements. If we can't share all of them, you're welcome to share those in the chat. And one other thing I wanted to share and has slipped my mind. So Martin, over to you.
Thanks, Bridget. As Bridget mentioned, my name is Martin L'Heureux. I'm with Product Calgary. It's very exciting to be here today talking to you about product management. And I brought, I reached out to some of the smartest people I know to join this panel, and I'll let them introduce themselves in the moment. But basically what we're going to talk about today is, as a discussion with our panelists and taking questions for the audience, is what is product management and why should you hire a product manager? So if you're thinking about a career in product management, we'll be addressing that. And if you're thinking of hiring and potentially you see potentially the need for product management, or you're wondering, we'll be addressing that as well. So by the end of this session, if you're on the career thing, you'll understand like the rough outline of what a product manager is and where you can go for more information. And if you're on a team, or if you're a business owner or startup founder, you'll have a better sense of the value of the role and how it fits into the ecosystem of your organization. And to that end, let me start by introducing Krista Hill, Ali York, and Michelle Priest, three working product managers and product professionals right here in Alberta, who have all sorts of different experiences who can speak to that. So what I'd like to do first is ask all three of them to introduce themselves. So Ali, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Ali York. I'm a product management lead at 7 Shifts. So what my job is working with a team of product managers to optimize our processes, make sure our roadmaps are heading in the right direction. And what we do as a company is we're in restaurant scheduling. So the core is very much, I'm a manager of a restaurant. I need to create and distribute a schedule. And then we have a lot of other pieces kind of walking into other areas of the employee life cycle. So things like hiring, onboarding, paying, and retaining those employees in addition to that.
Cool, thank you. Michelle.
Hi, thanks for having me. And my name is Mish, and I am, well, I started out as a senior product manager at AltaML, and then a little less than 2 weeks ago, I got promoted to venture lead of Sylvester AI. It's a joint venture using machine learning to help animals. And so our first project is using computer vision, so more or less cat facial recognition technology to identify pain. It's been a super fun project, and thank you for having me.
Now I understand why it's called Sylvester. Cool. Cool. Awesome. And Krista.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Krista Hill, and I'm currently a VP of product for the private markets of Morgan Stanley, which is a fintech organization. And I also serve on the board with Martin at Product YYC. My specialty is mostly the fintech industry, as my current title would dictate, but I also do a ton of work in the not-for-profit sector. And I'm here because I love a spicy conversation around defining the role of product manager. Like most folks, I've navigated the gray area of what it is and how to get into it over my entire career. So it's a bit of a personal mission to help bring some clarity to that for everyone so that we can attract more folks to the field and really make it easier to engage with the practice in general.
Cool. Thanks. All right. So my first question is, I'd like to get into this definition sideways. I'm going to be cheeky and ask the panelists, what is not product management? What is the most common misconception? I'm going to start with that, and then we'll get into it just to make it a little bit more interesting. What is typically confused with product management, but is not really product management? Let's go with let's start with Mish.
Yeah, it's not project management. So, yeah, the difference is, well, I'm not super clear on project management, but product management is very iterative. You need to be constantly listening to users and navigating, understanding the business needs, the sort of the design side, how you can communicate with users that way, and then the technical capabilities. And it's bringing all of that together to act on the product vision that you create. Whereas project management, I believe, is more where you have a very concretely defined outcome, and you break down the steps to achieve that outcome or the output.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Krista.
I'm not a product owner, and this is a really, it's really important to understand the differences between the two. And I can explain it, and I'm not sure how many folks have taken any product ownership training on the way to getting to be a product manager, which is a path for sure. But I don't spend the majority of my day with dev teams. I spend the majority of my day with the business and out in the market talking to users about our product and what they need. So typically what defines those two things is a product owner is a role on a development team, and you're with your dev teams and you're collaborating with the product manager around the priority of work coming in accordance to the goals of the business, which is to make sure that we can achieve the outcomes that they're trying to achieve, but we're not the same. So the product owner sits with the dev team for the majority of their time and helps to manage the day-to-day operations of those teams and their throughput and the priority of the backlog of the things that they're working on, and helping them understand the context to which they are building towards. But the product manager sits above that and sends that information to the dev teams.
All right, thank you. Having started with what is not a product manager, let's get to a definition. What are the main components? What are the main aspects of the product manager's job? Ali.
Yeah, I think I would say the main aspects of the job are to understand the different problems and opportunities that are at play, understand the vision of the company and what you want to achieve, and then line up those different opportunities and problems, prioritize to find out how the best way to get to that outcome is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Krista, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and really the job is we want to be the ones who are the experts in the customers who are using our product, and we need to have all the data associated with how they are using it. And we're really in charge of that relationship between the business model and the stakeholder group. So we're collaborating with those to ensure that we're teeing up the right value of work to be taken into development.
So how would you just staying on Krista, how would you summarize, like if product management was an equation, if we could bring it down to an equation, what would be like what goes into that equation? What do you have to add up to make product management?
Product really equals, Martin, the customer times the business times the technology. So business plus customer times technology, all of those have stakeholders. So your customer base is obviously your users. Your business is your executive stakeholder group and just the overall vision and strategy of the organization you're working for. And the technology, that partnership and that collaboration is basically you working with development, all the dev leads, architecture, et cetera, so that all of you can take the opportunities that are being presented to you by the business to solve and work together to create solutions for them.
Cool. Thank you. We have a question that came up. Patrick, who asks, how much overlap is there between a project manager's research and a UX researcher's research?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Krista,
want me to answer it? Oh,
yeah, you look like you're itching to answer
well,
that one.
Yeah, project management research and BA research is that, and UX research. There's everyone has a role to play, right? A BA will typically go out into the world and to identify an opportunity of a market that we could get into, right? And so this is just with my experience. And a project manager research, though, really is speaking to the players and coordinating all the resources that we would need to make sure that we can deliver on a certain schedule. The UX research typically would work with a product management group to do prototypes and test to see whether or not a solution that we've come up with, again, with our partners in technology, would work in the real world. So it's about all of those players contributing to the value, the usability, the feasibility, and viability of the solution. And they all play a role. And again, product management can help coordinate and facilitate all of those actions together and make sure that they're humming and going the right direction at the right time.
Cool. Ali, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that summarizes a lot of it. One of the key distinctions that I would kind of pull out of that for me is the difference between, like, you're probably going to have a prototype that you're going to take to a customer and walk through. This is what we think might work to solve the problem that we talked about yesterday, last week, whatever it might be. And one of you is going to be really focused on, okay, does this actually solve the problem that we outlined and how effectively does it do so? And maybe your design or your UX researcher might be a little bit more focused on, okay, cool, it solves the problem, but is it easy to use? Do you know which buttons do what? Can I like go through this in a quick and straightforward way? So maybe two different focuses there as well.
Nice, thanks. I'd like to put a little bit more narrative meat on the bones of this definition that we've talked about. I'd like to ask, starting with Michelle, what's a typical day for you in your product management practice? Just like typically, you know, what are kind of things you deal with? Who do you work with? What does that look like?
Oh, I don't think there is a typical day, because you're talking to so many different stakeholder groups and trying to keep keep everything moving. And then also my role is a little bit different. I take on some of the sort of like startup founder type roles, but when I think about the product management piece, so for example, we have a product testing group for our product. They're cat owners who have cats that need follow-up care for various reasons. And we're just observing them interact with each other in their environment with our prototype. And our next step is to have them participate in a focus group, which is going to be this Friday. So we're just going through and really getting clear on what we're trying to learn from the users in the focus group, and make sure that our questions don't have bias and are maximizing our learnings from them. And this time we're really focused on sort of that net promoter score, or what for the people who just, if our app was taken away and they would be very disappointed, what are those reasons why? So we make sure we maintain that in our product. And then for people who are somewhat disappointed, like what would bring them over to very disappointed. But I also sometimes wear a little bit of a product owner hat, and I'll work with the developers. So I've been meeting with the developers regularly to refine the requirements and get them into the backlog and start prioritizing them. And then I'm also meeting with the stakeholders, and we're talking about pricing and also figuring out the go-to-market strategy. So no 2 days are alike.
Nice. Krista, typical day in the life of a product manager for you?
That's a tough one, because like most folks, no one day is the same. And that's one of the beauties of the role, is that there's never any boredom, because the issue and the opportunities and things that you're solving for, you just get a new set of more interesting people to solve those problems with over and over and over again. So it's very eclectic, I would say, in my calendar. But the majority, I mean, most product managers have a pretty love-hate relationship with their Outlook calendars, because you are literally in back-to-back meetings, talking a lot of the day and interacting with folks in various levels of the business. From, your mornings might be with executive check-ins, giving updates on the status of towards goals such as OKRs, or helping in a vision and strategy session with folks that are struggling to figure out what that could be with their products, to going down to dealing with some conflict that's happening on the dev team because there's a disagreement towards how we're solving a particular thing. And you have to go in and put your mediator hat on and just point out the areas of concern that we want to solve today versus next week, next year, et cetera. So I would say it's never a dull moment. And it's a combination of wearing many hats with many different groups and a lot of context switching. So from one moment to the next, you're not going to be talking about one project versus another project. It's pretty nonstop all day. So if you like something that's action-packed, product management is definitely for you.
Awesome, thank you. We have some really great questions coming up in chat here that I want to address. Farine would like to know, do you have to have a strong sales or marketing background to be a successful product manager? Do you need a strong sales marketing background to be successful? Ali, do you need a...
No.
No, you don't.
It's one way to be a great product manager. Yeah. And you certainly need to understand the business and how the business works and how your customers think, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're the person that's giving the best pitches. I know I certainly am not. There's tons of product managers that come from a ton of different backgrounds, whether that's a customer support world, or maybe they were a dev before and got really passionate about the problems that they were solving. I think that's one of the great things about product management, is there's so many different areas of it to focus on and get really, really good at and be an effective person in that role. So that's one adventure to take to be a product manager, but it's definitely not the only one.
Nice. Mish, anything to add?
Sorry.
Yeah, the thing I'd like to add is the one thing that is helpful with having a type of sales background is when you go out and reach out to users cold, like having that ability to reach out to people cold. If you have a sales background, it makes it a little bit easier. You might have that training of, how to verbalize a LinkedIn message or something like that to actually get that door to open. So that's where it can help it. Yeah, definitely all different backgrounds move over into product.
Very cool. Thank you. Oh, this is a good one. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a customer success role and a product manager role? Krista, customer success versus product manager.
Customer success, really, you are their advocate within the business, right? So if you are a relationship manager, which I would classify as being part of client success, or a frontline person that's answering phones around, issues around friction or just giving support, you're gathering feedback. And the difference is that when you're in a client success role, you're gathering that feedback and you're giving it to product so that they can start to track and see trends of ways of making the product better. So that is really where the difference lies, is that on the client success side, you're more of an intake to gather up all that information. And then on the product management side, we use that for analysis in order to come up with and work with our technology partners to try and find solutions to some of those issues.
Cool. Thanks. So we've talked about product management at the intersection of the business strategy, the technological solutions, and the customer experience, right? To really summarize it, it's business plus customer experience plus technology, and navigating that and really making sure the product is valuable and viable. And we've talked about, the different activities and the different people in the company that a product manager talks about. So briefly, if you're hiring product managers, or if you're building your product management team, what are the, I know, I'm sure everybody's wondering here, what are the qualities that you're looking for, right? If you're building your team, what are the qualities you're looking for? Mish, when you're hiring PMs, what do you select for?
Yeah, I'm really looking for that person that's curious, constantly learning. There's so many different areas that you don't need to have deep expertise in, but it can help you with communications to have a little bit of that understanding. So someone who's just super curious about the world and likes to learn about a lot of different things. To me, that definitely stands out.
Nice. And Allie?
Yeah, that's fair. I really like the point of kind of curious, and it's somebody that is very rarely just taking the sort of face value of an answer and it's 6 more whys after that. But the people that I'm like, yes, this is going to work out. To me, it's a lot how they look at problems and try to break it down into pieces, because there's a million different things that we could solve and a million giant problems to focus on. But as a product manager, you really have to be able to say, okay, there's this whole sea of things that I want to fix, but what's the most important thing right now? Mm-hmm. So the way that they are able to kind of intake all that information is something that I try to pull out in an interview.
Nice. Krista, as a VP, obviously you're responsible for, your scope of responsibility and people report to you is bigger now. So what do you look for when you're building your team?
I look for people who know how to say no to things and say yes to things, and be really definitive that when we're saying yes, but it doesn't actually, nothing happens, we are still saying no. So we need to lead with that, right? And I think expectation setting around the role and what we're doing and what we're not doing is probably the top skill that I'm looking for. And in fact, like when we do our interviews, there's a case study that a few of us came up with where we get you to do a thing so we can see your presentation skills, how you would go looking in through the business to find your stakeholders, what sort of value would you be able to articulate based on this product. And then we throw you a question in the interview that is a new piece of information, and we want to see what you do with that new information. And it could be the difference between you throwing all that away that you just spent a ton of time and trying to impress us with, and just saying, actually, I wouldn't do any of it, and just holding that space for just like, that's the right thing to do. And having that kind of courage and tenacity to be able to articulate that sometimes doing nothing is the most valuable move so that we can focus on these other things over here is really what I look for in an interview.
Nice. So a certain level of discernment and critical insight. Nice. I'm just looking at the time here, and we have a little ways to go before we go into breakout rooms. But I'd like to switch our focus from what is a product manager and what is expected in the role to the value for the business. So before I do that, I'm going to share the link to the best organization in Calgary. If you want to know anything about product management, this is the place to go. Unsurprisingly enough, Product Calgary. So we are a professional association for product managers. We have an associate product management training program. We have monthly events for members. We're building alliances with our product organizations around the country, and we have all sorts of different things. So if you go to this website, yeah, that's right. Patrick says, I sense bias. Martin's like, nailed it. But yeah, product management, we've been around for 5 or 6 years. We've incorporated about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and things are going great. And our mandate is to build the awareness of product management in Calgary and Alberta, also build the talent pool and the skill level to make this province, this city and this province like incredibly attractive as talent pools for, mainly the tech sector right now, but obviously any kind of business that sells product or services. So productcalgary.com, your gateway to product knowledge, TM. Awesome. Thanks for indulging me, folks. So switching the focus a little bit to business impact, and this is more for startup founders, business owners, team leaders who are wondering about the role and the value it can bring to their team. So my first question is, if you have a company that does not have a product manager, and then they have a product manager, what has changed? What is the impact of product management on an organization? Let's start with Ali.
I think that transition is sort of the moment that you realize you needed someone to focus on it, and you probably let it go for too long and didn't have someone with that focus. Maybe you started out and it was a founder or a couple founders that were really close to the product and the problem and the customers. And a couple months ago, they got busy and they started needing to find funding or hiring new people for XYZ roles. And nobody's really been focused on that piece specifically. And as a result of that, you stop seeing kind of the trajectory, the vision, and the growth that you need to have as a company. So when that person comes in, they're going to be working on alignment, the goals, again, the vision, and building out what that's going to look like for the company.
Mm-hmm. Mish, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I see the benefit. So I've worked with quite a few startups, and I've been part of startups, and a really common way for companies to get started is with a solution in mind. And that can just really be a very expensive mistake. And so one of the things that a product manager can do is come in and really understand what problem are we solving, and validate a lot of assumptions and really de-risk. So, spend a little bit of money in the beginning, a lot of time validating assumptions. And then as you get more clarity on the problem you're solving, and then you get validation that it's a problem that people are willing to pay to solve, then go into the solution ideation mode. That leaves you more budget to market or do the scaling piece of it, or to build the solution. So I think a product manager can bring that discipline into really honing in on the problem that's worth solving.
Thank you. My next question, I'd like to start with Krista. What types of business would get the most benefit from a product manager?
Ideally, all stages of technology organizations have product managers, and we have to remember that that's going to mean very different things within that organization. And what having a product manager signifies is your ability to scale. Right? So early days in a tech startup, your product manager might be hired actually as your director of product, who might be acting as a PO and the product management and UX and the BA and everyone all in one. And that's what makes this role so confusing, is that when you apply for a role and you see the description, it doesn't match all the way along all these organizations. And really what it does is signifies where they are in their technology journey, right? So if you want to be a senior product manager practicing just product management and not the jack of all trades, early startup sort of mentality is really a signal of how close also your executive team is to product management. So like, for example, if you have a startup, you've got a founder, the founder has an idea, they already have a solution in mind. They try to find devs to build the thing, right? So in early days, in fact, the CEO is product management, right? And then you grow, you add some more dev teams, you get some funding. Now you have larger scale. And so you need layers in between that so that the CEO doesn't any longer have to be the product manager and coming up with the solutions. But you have to remember they have the most and the tightest relationship with the clients, which is what fuels the growth. So there's that transition time where whoever comes in to start that role formally will start having a job description that will be very delivery focused, which is only half the role of product management. And then over time, as the organization scales, your role starts to become more, and you get more of those chunks of the discovery research as it's able to, as the operation scales.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd like to share a visual to support that point. Just very quickly. So to Krista's point here, if you split the role, can people see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if you split the role into discovery and delivery, you will start by being a little bit more on the delivery side of things, and just, very often maybe somebody has figured out the roadmap for you and you're kind of like delivering features. But as you grow into your practice, you will be involved in the entire thing, right? But delivery is very often for typical brand new product managers, especially coming out of a project manager or product owner role. The delivery is going to be your first line of focus, but you will expand the scope of your activities to encompass all of it. So Krista, do you have anything to add last slide?
I do, because this is really critical, especially in Alberta. I've worked in this province for almost 20 years now in various roles, and 95% of them are in categories 5 through 7. The idea comes already flushed out to you, and we call this a bit of a feature factory mindset. And then as you become more senior in the role, you start with the fundamentals, you learn the things around discovery, and it's going to be our jobs as product management within Alberta to start to introduce these concepts of 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that the dev teams and management and the executive team can start to realize the value of some of these activities. But if you hit the slide on the animation, honestly, your first job, be realistic, is going to be 5 through 7. And just be cool with it, knowing, get your foot in the door, and then you can start to introduce these concepts and start to be our champion for change within building empowered product teams. There's so much value in bringing dev teams along and in and close to product management around research and discovery and prototyping, et cetera. And then when they get to the delivery phase, 5, 6, and 7, they can answer a lot of their own questions. So that frees you up now to go and start doing discovery on the next thing. And then it's a virtuous cycle and it starts all over again.
I'd like to just chime in there. I actually made that mistake where I came in, the expectation was that I work on delivery, but I was trying to force this kind of discovery process, and the organization just wasn't ready for it.
No, it's so common. And I've been in the same boat, Mish, like it's a struggle. And then you feel like you don't fit in. How come I want to do stuff and nobody wants to do it? Then people think that you're not good at your job, and it's not true. You're actually trying to bring more to it, but they're just not. They're not there. But there's slow incremental things that you can do as more people join the organization. Again, sometimes these problems happen with scale, and they can be solved with scale, that you get new folks coming in, then you see little nuggets of how they're like-minded like you, and then you try again, right? The key is just to keep trying and to not give up.
Nice. Follow-up question, and just actually, I'm gonna, sorry. I'm just gonna bring up the original slide again, animations. But so question, let's start with Ali. If a startup founder came to you and was thinking about hiring a product manager, what would be your advice?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we've kind of talked about pieces of it, which is just clarity of what they're looking for in a product manager. And when they think, I want a person to solve, I'm assuming they're hiring because they think they're solving a problem. So what is that problem that you need this person to solve? And being really clear in your job description, in your discussions when you're looking for that person, like, this is what I want you to be able to do. Because we've covered just how broad the definition of the job can be and how it's perceived in different companies. And that person won't be successful, and you won't be successful with them either if you're not aligned on what it is you actually want them to do once they're there.
Cool. Thank you. And with that, I'll stop sharing. So next question, and I'll start with Mish. What are some reasons to not hire a product manager? What are some bad reasons for hiring a product manager?
Well, I guess if you're not clear on your goals and your expectations of what that is, I think sometimes when startup founders are hearing about product management, wanting to hire a product manager, but then the job ad is kind of pulling from other product management jobs, but then they're just not super clear on what it is they're needing. So, are you wanting somebody in the delivery space or in the discovery space? Are you okay with, giving autonomy to somebody who's really seasoned and can kind of carry the product?
Mm-hmm.
That's like I feel like a cop-out answer.
No, not at all. No, you're absolutely right. Krista, anything to add to that? Like bad reasons for hiring a PM?
I think to Misha's point, like just not understanding what you need them for and hoping that they become the bucket where you can drop all the problems that you can't figure out. And
That's
normally
right.
I would say that's cool because we're the type of people who love big, messy problems and we love to help you sort out those things. But those can draw out actually more into interpersonal conflicts within an organization rather than actually solving the problems of the product. So I would say if you're in an interview and they're not really crisp on what this person is going to do, that might be a little bit of a red flag for you that this might not be the greatest organization to align yourself with. Someone else might be the right person for that opportunity. And they're giving you a hint that maybe it's going to be a little interesting. And just know that in the past, this job has been very challenging because of all the conflict that this role sometimes creates because of lack of clarity, but it doesn't need to be that way anymore. There are tools, there are resources, there's support, especially for executives trying to figure out what product is, so they can go find those. So don't let them try that stuff out on you. Let them have that discovery on their own, and you can meet them when they're a little further downfield.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm just looking at the time here. So one last question for the group. And it's the flip side of the question I just asked. A startup founder comes to you and they're thinking about hiring a product manager. Like, what are like the top 3 questions they should have a firm answer for before they go looking for a product manager? Like what should they know about themselves and their company before they go looking for a PM? Let's start with Ali.
Oh, another good one. 3 whole ones. Okay, well, firstly, I think it has to be, again, what you actually want from that role, right? You have carved this out because you've got Legos to give away and you need a person to give them to. So what are those Legos and what do you want them to achieve? Hopefully you have a really good vision of your company and the customers that you're serving and why you're serving those customers, because those are things that you're going to need to arm that product manager with. Or, maybe there's some discovery that they're going to have to do and some research and some validation. Cool, but it's really nice as a product manager if you can come into some of those things already existing. And then I'm going to turn to my co-panelists for number 3, because that's the end of my list so far.
Let's go with Mish. What would be another thing that a business owner or startup founder needs to have a firm grasp of before they go looking for a product manager?
I think if it's your first product manager, and this is me, I went into a role where I was expected to build a business to business or B2B platform, and I had direct to consumer experience, and I didn't realize or recognize the nuances and the differences in approaches with building a B2B product. So I think if you've never hired a PM before, you want to hire somebody who aligns in that way. I think somebody who doesn't have that experience, could learn it. but to just have that awareness. And I think be okay with learning and growing together. This is such a broad and diverse field. People have just such a richness and depth of experiences that can be pulled in, but there will be inevitably gaps because there are just such a huge variety of problems to solve. So I think have that person that you can see wanting to grow and learn together with.
Nice, thank you. And with that, we are at time. I believe I heard the bell. I didn't touch on all the questions in the chat, but definitely during the breakout sessions, feel free to bring those questions back up to us as we go around the virtual rooms. And I will now turn it over to Bridget.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. There's two questions in there that I know everyone will be curious about, and one is around how do people wanting to get into product management go about getting the skills, and then how do founders go about getting a grasp of what they need if they want more. So Martin, I know you have resources there if you want to share those in the chat. We will do what we're good at and head into some breakout rooms, have some conversation around everything we just heard around product management, lots to digest. So thank you all of the panelists. And if you're open to sharing your contact information, please do in the chat. We can chat about that or just get to know each other in the room. Part of what we work to do at Rainforest is build a culture of trust. And that just starts with more interactions and more getting to know each other. So I see some people have dropped off. So I'm just going to adjust the size of the rooms here a little bit and we'll hop in. We should have time for 2 rooms, about 7 minutes each. So you will not have time to finish your conversations most likely. So please get each other's information in the direct messages and whatnot if you want to continue conversations outside of here. And here come the breakout rooms.
Yeah.
Instead, I just sit here and start working and then get distracted and forget to bring everyone back. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I want to give a special shout out to Martin and the panelists that joined us today. That was so much information, and I think probably really clarified and enlightened a lot of us based on what was happening in the chat. So we thank you greatly for taking time in your day to share with us today, and check out Product Calgary and connect with, looks like Martin's throwing stuff in the chat, so you can find all that there. And I also just want to give a really special shout out to any newcomers who joined us today. I think about 30% of the crowd were new to Rainforest. So if you have any questions about Rainforest, please reach out to us, info@rainforestab.ca. If you are curious about how to go about building a startup company, we've got Colton Ryerson here from Startup Calgary. You have Startup Edmonton up north if you have any questions there. And if you have anything else you want to chat about, we have our Slack channel. So once you sign our social contract, you gain access to the Slack channel. And there are thousands of people in that community having conversations that you are more than welcome to take part in. So I would just like to open the door to any announcements from the community. Peter has some announcements he wants to share, so I'll let him go first.
Okay, I got 2 quick things to tell you about, and I've posted them up at the top of this chat. So one of them is a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital Hospice, and you have an opportunity for $10 to win yourself a giant bicycle certificate that was donated by Ridley Cycle. So you could actually, you're going to win anyway, because you're going to be winning by helping those kids and their families in a really tough time, and at the same time maybe win yourself a nice big $5,000 bicycle certificate. So get on it. And then also Friday morning at 7:30, if you want to attend our how to make money in the new energy environment that we're in, the economy. Very informative presentation that is free, and you can attend that, and that's also posted there as well. So join us if you're interested. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Any other announcements? Martin, you're
Unmute. So if you want to follow up this conversation, we have, as I mentioned, Product Calgary has monthly speakers, and the speaker next month, the theme is Roads to Product Management. So it's a great extension of our discussion today. Mitch Gillespie is the Chief Growth Officer at Thin Air Labs, and he's got an amazing presentation on the product manager mindset, the relationship of a product manager to all parts of the business, and the typical paths into a product management career. So if you're interested from like the career side of things, definitely join us next month. I put a link in the chat, or you can find the information on meetup.com/Product Calgary for all of our events. So that's Roads to Product Management. These presentations are members only, but the membership for Product Calgary is $30 a year, which gives you access to our private job board, Slack channel, resources, recordings and decks, and access to our programs. So you can, you'll find all the links on meetup.com. Tomorrow, which is the third Thursday of the month, I'll be doing a presentation for Product Calgary on product ethics. It's called Don't Kill the Customer. And it should be a lot of fun and a little bit terrifying and awesome. But yeah, that's tomorrow afternoon. So once again, if you want to join Product Calgary, or if you're already a Product Calgary member, you can join us for these events. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll stick around here for a bit. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love to talk about product management anytime. I'm a huge nerd that way, and I love Calgary.
Thanks, Martin. That's awesome. Love self-proclaimed nerds. We have a feedback poll happening there. If you don't mind giving us some feedback, I'm happy to accept it via email too, if you want to share any feedback with me. And we wish you all a wonderful week. Thanks for joining us. We always keep the room open. So if you want to continue the conversation and there's enough of you left, we'll open a few more breakout rooms. Have a great week, everybody.